Hi everyone, it's Alyssa, and today I'm going to review the 4K version of The Northman, which I actually just saw last night for the first time. I was holding off because I originally wanted to see it in the theater, and then I've just had so many problems with the theater that I thought, okay, I'm going to wait, get the 4K, and I'm really glad that I did because this just looked spectacular. It sounded spectacular. Um, it is the kind of movie that I would just watch so many times. So I'm so glad that I actually invested in the 4K version. And Robert Eggers is one of my favorite working directors right now. So it's just so much fun to see what he can do with a pretty decent chunk of money. I think the budget on this was originally supposed to be around 60 million, and then it turned into 90 million because of COVID, and they actually started filming this movie March of 2020, which is like no worse time that you could possibly start filming something. So they started filming and then they just shut down production before they barely got underway. But all of the sets were there, the sets were done. And I think Robert Eggers said the one good thing was that it had the time to weather. So the sets actually looked older, they looked more worn in. And if that is the case, then maybe that's one great thing that happened. But the Northman tells a very basic story, a narrative story that all of us know. It's basically the story of Hamlet. So you have a young prince who sees his father murdered by his uncle, and he is going to take revenge. And so it is that similar narrative structure. But what I loved about this movie is that there were still surprises within it because it's not the Shakespearean version of the story. It's the Norse version of the story. And the movie really plays around with perception and where you're getting information from. And it moved in ways that hit the beats that you would expect, but not necessarily that you would see coming. And it was that sort of surprise in a kind of basic narrative story that was just so engaging the whole way through. I will also say that the cinematography in this film, like The Lighthouse, is my favorite movie from 2019. I know it is the kind of film that people are either going to love it, hate it, think it's really pretentious, but there is something literally in my soul that just connected to every aspect of that movie. And the cinematography definitely played a part in it. But in this one, it was like Robert Eggers became obsessed with long takes. And there are certain sequences where it is a raid on a village where you are just following Alexander Skarsgard's character the whole way through, and you're going vertically and you're going horizontally and you're moving around buildings, and all you can keep thinking is, how did they do this? And then I read that they would do these sequences 25 times. So just to have the strength and endurance to do these scenes over and over and over again, you may not be thinking about it when you're watching it the first time. I mean, I was thinking about it, so you probably would be thinking about it, but it was just so impressive. And it is the same cinematographer who did The Witch, The Lighthouse, and he did this with him as well. And what a story would a film to have to take on. So the cinematography is spectacular, as you would expect with any Robert Eggers movie. The detail is just incredible. Every time you hear a song, like there's kind of this like mating song dance sequence within it, and I'm just like, well, I guarantee you that's a real song and this was a real thing. And all of the research that so many people put into making the film and the costumes. And so I was actually watching the special features on this, and they have so many good ones. Like there was one about the costuming, ageless epic. I watched everyone except for the full feature length commentary that you can get from Robert Eggers. So this actually has a lot of special features, which is really nice. But they were going through how every costume meant something, and the lines and the fabrics, everything meant something to a particular character. it's just that kind of detail. Even if you don't know what everything means as you're watching the movie, you are so enveloped in the world that you subconsciously know the amount of work that has been put into a film like that. And a film like this that is supposed to be reaching wide audiences, and that is what is so cool about it is it's very daring in terms of the action. It is, I mean, it is bloody, it is graphic, it is exactly what you want for a Viking film, and I couldn't have asked for it to have been better. And what's funny is I actually teach Beowulf, and while this story is nothing like Beowulf, I was just thinking about the back of my head, why can't they make a film for Beowulf that sort of has this feeling and tone and authenticity and realism? But what makes it even better is that it also really leans into the Norse folk mythology, the supernatural elements in the story. Bjork has a really great scene, the images of the Valkyrie going up into Valhalla. That is just gorgeous and imaginative, just beautiful. So you're not just grounded in this sort of reality, even though everything that you're looking at is so real and so authentic, the best that they could do, considering, in the 900s, everything was passed down in a lot of oral traditions. So they may not know everything, but they had worked with so many experts in the field to make this as authentic as possible. And it absolutely feels like it. And what really anchors the movie down is Alexander Skarsgard. Now, I always loved him as an actor. True Blood was just one of the most fun TV shows like ever, and he was Eric Northman in that actually too, and it was the perfect character for him. But this really is the most perfect character that he's ever played. I felt like his heart was in this movie in a way that I don't think I've ever really seen from him before. I mean, he's sort of like hunched over like this animal throughout the entire film, and he's just solely motivated by vengeance until he meets Anya Taylor-Joy in the film, and their relationship and their chemistry was really better than I expected, considering the age difference. And they just, you could see that they connected as people outside of the film because the chemistry within the film was just so natural and easy. And going to her character, she was very interesting because yes, she is the love interest in the story, but she is very strong, very able to take care of herself in so many situations. There is one scene in particular, I will not say, because it is just too much fun when you watch it, where she is very easily able to get men to back off of her. And she's wonderful in the film. Like she is the best when she is working with Robert Eggers. Those are, I think, probably the best performances that I've ever seen her give. And even though Ethan Hawke is only in like a very small part of the movie, because obviously he's the father, he even impressed me. It was he's getting better as he gets older. He's always been a really good actor, but I've always thought he sort of stays within this certain lane, and he's not anymore. He's just fully enveloped in characters that I never thought I would see him play, and he really steps up to it in this film. So, in terms of the performances, the only performance where sometimes I get a little distracted, and this is just a complaint of mine kind of in general with her, is Nicole Kidman. And she is a great actress. I cannot unsee some of the things that she does with her face and the work that she's gotten. And, she's not really wearing much makeup here. And sometimes I feel like that makes it more noticeable. And I don't know, it gets a little bit distracting to me, but all in all, when I watch a movie like this, I get excited for cinema and what money can do for a film. And, reading a lot about this is still the movie that Robert Eggers wanted to make, even though the studio had so much control over certain sequences. Um, but they ended up working together and it worked out really well. Like, the studio had a problem with the sequence at the end, and honestly, it might look better the way the studio wanted it. There is a sequence with red and fire in the background, and it is just gorgeous. Like, it is gorgeous looking. So I'm just so impressed to see what he did with that bit extra of money and where he was able to take the story. I would still say I like The Lighthouse better because it has that kind of little fun, offbeat sense of humor that I really get. And there's not really humor in a movie like this, nor should there be, except for, there is a small performance by Willem Dafoe that is just so much fun where he plays a fool, like a jester, but he's also a priest and he's part of this kind of enactment that the father and the son do. And it's just wild. It's crazy. There are so many wild and crazy sequences in this. As I was watching it, I did say to my husband, like, can you imagine the average person just watching this movie? Because it is not as abstract as his other films, but it is a little bit. Like, when you're seeing Bjork in this incredible costume and performance, and I'm doing this because of her headdress in it, but there are unusual parts that keep a person like me really interested, but I just wonder, like, what would your average moviegoer say while they were watching this film? I really hope that they did like it. And, I didn't look at the box office for this. I'm sure it didn't do as well as it could have done. And I think a lot of that has to do with COVID. But I really hope that Robert Eggers gets the chance to make movies like this again in the future, because it was really just so much fun to watch. And when he's interested in something, it makes the viewers interested in that same thing. I never thought that I would be so fascinated by Vikings, but you feel that energy and you feel that passion in the film, in the movement of the character, in the performances, in the even the beauty, the language, of the written language that I had read. They include a lot of alliteration to make the language sound as similar to what the language would have been in the actual poem version of this story. And I know that in Beowulf, that's what Seamus Heaney did when he did the translation. He included a lot more alliteration and assonance and consonants, and he wanted this sound. So it may not be a literal translation, but it gives you like an authentic feeling of what the sound of the language would be like and the poetry of the language. And I so appreciate that that effort is put in. And I know Robert Eggers wrote this with Sojan. I'm definitely not saying that correctly, but the script is really wonderful and magnetic and kind of whimsical feeling. So if you have seen The Northman, I would love to know what you all thought about this. Is this the direction where you would want blockbusters to go? I saw The Gray Man a couple of days ago, and everybody knows I love Ryan Gosling, and it was such a movie. There's no other way for me to say it. It was such a movie. It was just action, 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 more, 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 more. Don't worry about the characters. Don't worry about make it look kind of cool, but it's not quite getting there. Use songs that are maybe a little bit different, but everybody still knows them and feels comfortable with them. I was kind of disappointed. It's not a bad movie, but when you have a track record like First Man and Blade Runner 2049 and La La Land and The Nice Guys, and the list goes on and on, it's not the greatest. But that's why I'm so happy that a film like The Northman exists. So if you've seen anything else from 2022 that kind of constitutes this blockbuster film, I have not seen Top Gun Maverick, which everybody I know is just going nuts for it. I would love to hear about that in the comments as well. So, as always, thank you so much for listening. Please like and subscribe, and I will see y'all later. Bye, guys.